So I recently made a video on which domain expansion you should get, and now I'm going to be doing the same for maximums. Now there's only 5 maximums inside this game, so this video won't be that long. And just to keep it blunt with you at the very start of the video, I think that every single maximum is super good and you can use them no matter what. Now, following the domain expansion video, just in case you haven't watched it, how I'm going to break things down is I'm going to be giving the certain skill or the maximum technique in this instance a ranking for both PvP and PvE. And then past that, I'm just going to be breaking down like positives and negatives that I personally think that the technique has. To be honest with you, I'm probably just going to be talking about positives majority of the time because I really do think that every technique is like super duper good. So to not waste any more time, I think I'm going to start off this time with Star Rage. Now, Star Rage's maximum is going to be the black hole. And just in case you don't know how to use maximums, to use the maximums at this game, you simply just have to land 3 black flashes. So once you have 3 black flashes and you go to use Star Rage's maximum, this maximum is simply just going to be a black hole. Now I can't tell you an exact damage amount for each maximum because it varies based on your build with the certain maximums, but I know that Star Rage's maximum does a lot of damage and it also has a very huge hitbox, and this makes sense because it's literally a black hole. So to rate this for PvE, I would honestly just call it super duper good. You can use this as like a fight closer. Let's say that you're fighting a boss and it has like around 4,000 to 5,000 HP and you have like a full technique build. You can use this technique and then just kill the boss off of that. The one downside to this technique is just going to be the fact that it damages you. I'm not sure on the exact amount that it damages you, but I had around 11.5k HP when I used it and I dropped down to 8.7k. So it's doing like around 2,300 damage or 2,700 damage. Anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 damage is how much the technique is going to be doing to you, which is an alright smallish amount of HP. I'm not sure that most builds are gonna have 11,000 HP to begin with, so taking 2k off of yourself is honestly a downside to it. But besides that, if you use this technique how I'm assuming it is meant to be used, as like a very strong closer that is guaranteed to hit, then I'm pretty sure that you also won't be able to like kill yourself while using this technique. And I also tested to see if you can use Infinity Mugen while also using this technique so that you don't damage yourself, but that's not true. I use Infinity Mugen, which is basically infinity, and then I also use Star Rage's black hole, and I was still able to damage myself through the infinity iframes. So you cannot avoid damage when using Star Rage's black hole. But to rate this for PvE, I'm honestly going to give it an 8 out of 10, and for PvP, I'm probably just gonna give it like a 10 out of 10. I don't think that you can honestly go wrong with any maximum, like I said at the start of the video. And if you're going to be using this how it's intended to be used, as a fight closer or just to simply guarantee hit kill your opponent, for PvP you can honestly make perfect use of it. So for PvP, if you are going to be using this the right way, you can easily chip off a lot of damage from the person that you're fighting. You will also damage yourself, so honestly I'm going to drop it to a 9 out of 10 for PvP because damaging yourself is always going to be a negative, but it's still going to be good. Next we have is the Infinity Nuke, Hollow Nuke, whichever one you want to call it. This technique or maximum is absolutely beautiful, not only based off of the way how it actually looks, but just in general how cool it is to perform and actually getting it off. So now we have Infinity Nuke. Now for this technique, the maximum isn't going to be a skill like Star Rage's. To use this technique, you're also going to have Lapse Blue equipped, and you're also going to have Reversal Red equipped. After you have both of those techniques equipped, you also are going to have to use the real maximum, which is going to be maximum 6 eyes. When you're inside the maximum 6 eyes state, this is the state that allows you to actually create the Hollow Nuke. And once you do this, you're just going to have to simply chant your blue, and then while your blue is hovering inside the air, you're going to chant your Reversal Red, and once you do that, you can actually perform the Hollow Nuke. But simply for downsides, one that I would like to point out is the focus requirement that you're going to need to actually perform this technique. Now in total, if you want to do the Hollow Nuke, the huge AoE nuke for Hollow Purple, you are going to need 5 focus meters, meaning a maxed out focus tree essentially. Now to do this, you're going to need 3 focus meters to go inside maximum 6 eyes, and then you're also going to have to chant your blue, which requires 1 focus bar, and you're going to have to chant your red, which requires another focus bar, in total adding up to 5. And while I'm also on the topic of downsides for this, Another one is going to just be the HP of your actual skills itself. And I mean that very literally. If you look at blue orb while it's hovering inside the sky, you can see that blue orb only has 1 HP bar. Now, I'm not sure if you can destroy this because I was only able to use it on test stage, but I am very confident that you can destroy this with like any skill. Not only does it add on to kind of like the coolness to me because you can literally prevent somebody from nuking you, but it's also like a downside because people can use a skill and hit this. Now, you cannot track this skill like how you would track an NPC, where if you hold E to rush somebody, you'll be able to like track the blue orb. To knock down the blue orb or to just destroy it, you would literally have to hit it with a aerial skill. And the same thing also applies to red. Red moves a lot faster and you're typically going to be using it after you perform blue, but you can destroy the person's red as well if you're able to snipe red out the sky. Moving on to the positives for this technique. It does a lot of damage and does not damage you as well. Now, this is probably like the best maximum for grinding, and I say that while also thinking that every other maximum could be the best for grinding. This maximum is just super duper good. Not only can you hit the NPCs with your blue and red while you're chanting them, but if you hit them with both of those skills and then you also perform the maximum on top of that, you're just going to absolutely decimate them for PvE. And then for PvP, the AoE of this skill, it will be very, very hard to avoid this hollow purple nuke, which makes sense because it's literally a nuke. And one more thing I almost forgot to note about the infinity section is just going to be the fact that when you're also inside your maximum 6-eye state, your M1s do perform like vacuum punches. And here you can actually see like my M1s when I'm walking around with the person, you have the ability to literally like move the person with you as you're M1ing. Now, this honestly is not as good as, you know, applying bleed damage on your M1s, but it's honestly still like a feature to just note. So in PvP, I guess you can like move the person around with you as you're M1ing them. This maximum is super duper good. For PvP, I'm going to honestly rate it a like, I would say an 8 out of 10. And the only reason why I'm rating it like not anything higher is because like having to get 5 focus meters is not as easy as you would honestly think it is, and you would have to design your build inside like a certain way if you really do want to guarantee that you're going to get this hollow purple nuke in PvP. And then for PvE, I would rate this a 10 out of 10. No mob is going to destroy your orbs, so this is honestly just like free damage inside PvE, and you don't even damage yourself. So for PvE, it's definitely a 10, and for PvP, it's an 8. Now following that, we have Jacob's Ladder. Now, Jacob's Ladder, this is going to be the maximum for Curse Queen or the copy curse technique. And this maximum is honestly very, very cool. I'm pretty sure it was the latest maximum added inside the game. When I actually first used it, it was only able to be performed inside of the Curse Queen's domain expansion. But now you can actually use Jacob's Ladder outside of the domain expansion. And this maximum technique is super duper good. Now, to note, Jacob's Ladder, when you're going to be using this, you just simply have to perform 3 black flashes, just like Star Rages, and this actually just comes as a skill. So once you perform 3 black flashes and you are standing near any NPC outside of the domain expansion, it will just hit things inside a certain AoE for you. Now, this maximum outside of the domain expansion does not have that much range. That's honestly is what I would call like a very clear downside to it. You're gonna have to be pretty close to the person that you want to use this maximum on. When I was testing it around dummies, it does not have the same amount of range as like literally any other maximum, but keep in mind this is all outside of the domain expansion. If you use this inside the domain expansion, it is a guaranteed hit on whoever you use it on, no matter where they are. That is only inside the domain expansion. Outside the domain, the technique is still super duper good. There is a way to stop this technique, and that's by killing Rika. Rika has 500 HP. Now, 500 HP is a pretty good amount, and I'm pretty sure like most skills aren't going to completely one-shot Rika, so I do think it is kind of free to land this maximum, unless you just simply like don't get that close to the person when they're using it. Even still though, this maximum is super good. Not only does it sound beautiful because it's actually like angels are descending down upon you and dropping a huge beam of light on you, but also because of how much damage this maximum does. Every maximum is going to do a lot of damage, and Jacob's Ladder is not exempt from that. So to honestly just keep this very brief, because I do think that this maximum is just good. For PvE, I'm going to rate this maximum like I'll say an 8 out of 10. Now, the only reason why I'm not going to rate it higher is because if you're not using the Curse Queen domain expansion, you are going to have to be pretty close to the boss to actually use this maximum. So using this maximum outside of the domain expansion is not going to be super hard. And then for PvP, I would honestly rate this one like a 7 out of 10. Now, the only reason as to why I'm doing that is also because of the needing the domain expansion. I mean, fighting people up close, you are going to be fighting someone up close, but for them to stand there and kind of get hit by Jacob's ladder, it's not not possible, but I think it could be like a 60% chance that you'll land it and a 40% chance that you'll miss it outside of the domain expansion. I do want to say that it is kind of cool that the developers allowed you to be able to use it outside the domain expansion, but the range for it is just not the same compared to every other maximum. It is still super duper good if you actually do land it inside PvP, and you can probably make a build orientated around holding people down so that you can land this skill. But this ranking is honestly just for me basing the maximum off of you just using the maximum on the person alone trying to land it, and it would fall short. So for PvE, I would definitely say an 8, and for PvP, I would say a 7. Now following that, we have Sukuna's maximum, and this maximum is going to be World Cleave. Now to perform World Cleave, it's honestly going to be the same as Hollow Purple Nuke, and you are going to need 5 focus meters. Now you're going to need 3 focus meters to pop High-End Era Awakening, which is going to be your form, kind of like maximum 6 eyes. And then you're also going to need 2 focus meters to chant Dismantle and chant Cleave. So once you have your 5 focus meters and you actually are inside this form, not only will it just change your dismantles and cleaves in general, allowing your dismantle to become like a much easier to land combo extender, and your cleave to just do a lot more damage and have a lot more range, becoming like a huge net. If you are able to chant this and actually perform World Cleave, the skills itself are just super duper good. If you don't want to do World Cleave and you just want to use like the different variations of Dismantle and the different variations of Cleave, these are both super duper good. If anything, the only downside I would say to this maximum is that you just look ugly for having like 4 arms and the mouth, chest and everything, but that's not even like a real downside to it. Chanted Dismantle, it has a pretty nice hitbox, and it's like it kind of just performs like a rock wall right in front of you, and then you just chant it and destroy it, and you do a bunch of slices to the people in front of you. And Chanted Cleave just does a lot of damage, and if you do chant these in succession and you perform what I'm assuming is like the real maximum, which would honestly be World Cleave, then it's honestly just absolutely beautiful. Another thing to also note about this form is that when you actually do get inside your High-End Era Awakening mode and you like M1 the opponent, your M1s also now start to apply bleed damage, and this is because your M1s have like small little dismantles and cleaves on the end of it, so you literally just apply bleed damage to anything that you touch. And then when you're actually using World Cleave or World Cutting Slash, this is honestly just like a lot of damage. Now the range for it, it's honestly super good. I can't tell you exactly what it is because I thought that the rocks would be like a really good hitbox indicator for it, but it's kind of like it only hits what's in front of you and not everything that's like encased inside of the barrier of the rocks. You honestly just see what I'm talking about as I'm like playing the footage of it up on the screen, but it's honestly still a very huge size. It's not as huge as Hollow Purple Nuke. Hollow Purple Nuke is definitely the largest, or probably the largest. Yeah, Hollow Purple Nuke is the most largest AoE. But World Cutting Slash is honestly still super duper good itself. Overall, this maximum, I would rate it like an 8 or maybe even a 9 for PvE. I don't really know how much more I can keep on wording it. Every single maximum is good. You're going to be doing a lot of damage, and landing your chance versus bosses and mobs inside this game is not going to be hard at all. And getting 5 focus meters versus mobs and bosses in this game is also very realistic too. Regular dismantles and cleaves are also very good skills. If anything, if I would get this maximum, it would be more for PvP. And I probably wouldn't even try to land World Cleave inside PvE, just because the chanted versions or the amplified versions of Dismantle and Cleave become so good. So for PvP, I would honestly rate this probably like a 10 out of 10. Not only do your M1s apply bleed damage, your regular skills also just change and become so good. And now we're moving on to the final maximum technique for this video, and that is going to be Volcano's maximum, which is also going to be Meteor. Now, Meteor, it's probably the simplest maximum to explain. Once you land 3 black flashes, you get the skill, which is going to be Meteor. And Meteor, you drop a Meteor. That's pretty much it. Now, I wanted to see if there was like any downsides to this Meteor, and I honestly do not think there is. This maximum is honestly super duper good, and I would probably call it like the weakest maximum, and it being the weakest also still means that it's like S tier naturally as a skill itself, but comparing it to every other maximum is probably the one that's going to be the worst, and I say worst in like the most positive way ever. This maximum has no range limit. I tried to see if it had like a range limit that would kind of like show if it's worse than any other maximum, but it doesn't. I used the maximum on top of like this little place inside the testing sandbox server, and I drew it to like as far as I can see, and the maximum was able to go over there at a very decent speed as well. If anything, the only thing I would complain about for this maximum would just be the speed of the attack. If you're using it from a very far distance, like the one that I showed inside the video, then that could probably be a downside for it, but I doubt people would be using it from that far. Even still, for PvE, this maximum is just super good. It's a high damage, huge AoE, burning, flying attack that bosses and mobs are not going to be avoiding. So for PvE, this maximum honestly is like a 9 to a 10 out of 10. If anything, I'll just rate it like a 9.5 to be safe, but this maximum is also super duper good. Now for PvP, I would probably rate this like a 7 or maybe an 8. And the only reason as to why is because I feel like people would have counters for this. Depending on where you use this maximum, or not even that, when you're charging up the maximum itself, people have a decent amount of time to react and think as to what you're going to be doing. If you're fighting a person who's using Infinity, they can use Infinity Mugen and make your maximum look like child's play. Basically meaning that like your maximum would do nothing at all to the person. Now, not only that, I'm not sure if you can avoid this with just pure movement alone, but this maximum, it does move at like a pretty decent speed. It's not slow, but it's also not fast. So the person would have time to think and try to react to what you're gonna like be doing. But even still, I don't think that the chances for you missing this maximum is going to be that high. If anything, if you was to use this maximum 10 times against a player, I'll guarantee that you'll land it like 9 to 8 times against a player out of 10. Judging from like almost every single maximum on this tier list, they all kind of got a 7 or an 8. None of the maximums have dropped below the number 7, and that's just because every single maximum is good. If you see somebody in the comments trying to like lie to you and tell you that a maximum is bad, they're lying to you. Every maximum inside this game is good. Honestly, for maximums, I would just go and use the one that you like the most, to be honest. I'm playing on using Sukuna only because he's like my favorite character. I could use Infinity because it's probably better overall, but even still, the maximums are all good inside this game. Every single one of them is good. But hopefully this video did help you get some more insight on it itself. I know these videos have been pretty helpful to people, so I actually do appreciate not only you guys watching, but I'm also pretty happy that it's helping people out as well, just me explaining and breaking these things down. After this, I'm going to be doing a tier list, my own personal tier list, where I'm just ranking every single curse technique against each other. And besides that, thank you for watching this video. Like I've said in the last one, I appreciate all the support on my channel greatly. I'll be smiling like every single time I'm recording. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. Hopefully it did help you as well and give you just like a better headspace on which maximum you should use. And besides that, yeah, thanks for watching.